Hello, and welcome to Rec Chat, where students and professionals talk about all things collegiate recreation. I'm your host, Rochelle Williams from Western Washington University, where I'm the Aquatics and Youth Programs Coordinator. Thanks for joining us and watching the rest of this series. This will be the first of a multi-part series where we're able to spotlight Asian Caucus members. So we are super excited to start off with Adam and Domonique, and they will have a chance to introduce themselves in just a minute. But before that, I would like to share our gratitude with our friends at NERSA HQ for all of their support. If you haven't already, follow them on Twitter and Instagram at NERSA Live. Also, did you know that RecChat is on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube? Make sure to follow us at RecChat. So without further ado, I'll let our panelists start by introducing themselves. If y'all could go ahead and share with us who you are in a brief journey of your adventure into higher education, that would be fantastic.
Hi, thanks for having me today. My name is Adam Comeau, and currently I'm the Aquatics Nurse Management Coordinator for the University of Wyoming Campus Recreation Department. I started as a lifeguard in high school and then in college at lifeguard as well at Washington State University, where I was a head lifeguard, did a lot of instructional classes for lifeguarding and CPR. My senior year, started getting interested in pursuing rec as a professional career. And I graduated May 2018, was applying for jobs, got this one August 2018. I've been out here in Laramie, Wyoming ever since.
And my name is Domonique Sack. I am the coordinator of competitive sports and summer camps at Youngstown State University. I started my rec journey as a sophomore. I played club rugby for 5 years. And in my third year, my senior year, I was a sport management major, and I had to do practicums and internships all over campus. And essentially, I did athletics, student union, and advancement, like the people that call alumni for money. And I didn't love any of them. Like I enjoyed it, but like I wanted to love what I did. And it wasn't until one of my professors was like, "Hey, why don't you just like try doing your internship at Campus Rec? It's literally all of those three things combined." And I was like, "Okay, sure, why not? I'll try." And so one thing led to another. And after my internship, the assistant director of Campus Rec was like, "Do you want a job here? I'll hire you with whatever position we have available." And so by the second semester senior year, I worked in fieldhouse and facilities. That was my start. But I was still involved in rugby and kind of like through mentorship and really exposure to Campus Rec all the time, I learned that I could develop a career into it. And so I went into sport management with the goals of being a high school athletic director. And then I graduated with my master's knowing that I wanted to do club sports at the very least. And so I think that I managed pretty well considering I had to change, but not too much. Now I deal with the high school or with the college students instead of high school.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing with us how you got started. I think I think most of us that are in here, it's that classic story of like, didn't really know what I wanted to do, or I had a completely different objective, and then I ended up here because most of us enjoy what we do. So if you wouldn't mind talking to us a little bit about how NERSA has supported your professional development in general, and then also how it's helped you celebrate your Asian identity. And then Adam, let's start with you.
Okay, so let me just make sure I'm reading the question correctly. So NERSA, I feel like is a great way to connect with other professionals, and specifically if aquatics is really useful because there's a lot of training elements and facility care involved just because of the nature of the water and chlorine and needing lifeguarding staff which have that higher certification. So being able to talk with colleagues or go back through past chat forums is really useful. Conferences are fun. Got to connect with people and bounce ideas off each other, as well as just make other friends in the industry. So it's been a while since my last conference, but I quite enjoy going to those. And celebrating Asian identity. Actually, I really like that question because prior to joining the Asian caucus with NERSA, obviously, I'm by the way, half white, half Filipino, just for the audience knows. And, I have huge Filipino family and stuff along the West Coast. So when I lived back in Washington, got to see him quite often. I don't see him as much anymore living out here in Wyoming. So it was nice to be able to connect with other Asian American colleagues through NERSA who have a similar cultural identity and also similar career field. So on those 2 points, it's nice to be able to talk with other people. And with the past, couple of years with everything that's been happening with the pandemic and stuff, it's very nice to have any form of support group, really.
Yeah, and I mean, to add to what Adam said, I would say that NERSA provided an Asian caucus, so like gave us a safe space to celebrate our identities, which like also revealed that there are Asian professionals in the field at varying levels. But besides that, there weren't many opportunities to kind of celebrate our identities of being Asian. Besides like being at conferences or virtual sessions and being like, oh my God, are you Asian? What Asian are you? And that kind of like connects us right there. But there are so little Asians in our field in general. And like, maybe Adam can speak about this too, but like, it wasn't until recently, like I felt recently, last 5 years, that Asian people were empowered to not follow the status quo. What I mean by that is like, we don't have to be doctors or fall to parental pressures. Like we can actually like, make our own decisions and pivot our careers. So I'll just say that. But knowing that there were people who like looked like me and had similar cultural experiences growing up definitely made me feel better, especially during like the pandemic. But I would say in terms of my professional development, I heard of NERSA like end of junior year, beginning of senior year. And I applied for like conferences, scholarships and stuff like that. As all of us know, those scholarships are pretty competitive, so I didn't get any, but I still tried. And it really wasn't until like the graduate assistants in recreation at the time, a couple of us shared like classes in undergrad. They like introduced me to like opportunities, like, oh, like look, you can do an internship here, you can volunteer here, and they were the ones that really encouraged me to look at opportunities and careers. And basically, one of them sat me down and was like, you can do better than high school administration. I was like, we'll see about that. And here kind of we are. In grad school, I decided on my own that I wanted to be more involved in the field. And so I did look for a graduate assistant position in recreation. Didn't really find anything. Did get a fellowship. So like I was able to get tuition paid for, but I stayed involved in my recreation department as a grad student. Eventually, Bluefish Jobs, shout out to Bluefish Jobs. I found an internship at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, which literally covered both areas that I oversaw at the time. So it was intern to be sport clubs and youth activities intern. And it was exactly what I was looking for. It challenged me. It helped me relocate. It was awesome. I was also able to participate in the NERSA basketball championship series over in Region 3 at the time. And so all in all, like it showed me a new world that I didn't even know of prior to my involvement in Campus Rec.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you for sharing. Domonique, would you mind talking to us about how your identity has impacted your experience and well-being formerly as a student and currently as a professional in campus recreation?
Of course, Rochelle. So foremost, I would say that in addition to being Asian, my identity also spreads to me being a woman and me identifying as LGBTQ. So like those identities are important to me to share because, being marginalized 3 different ways, like I make it a point to fight for the underdog. So foremost, I'll say that students who don't have as much accessibility to for professional development, because we know like attending conferences or like championship series can be costly. I always try to help them out or redirect them in terms of their profession so that they see the value in campus recreation. But as a student, I so badly look for people who look like me. It was hard because I didn't see much representation until like my first year as a pro staff, which was April 2019. And this is when I noticed that there was a lack of diversity of like women in leadership and people of color in the field as a whole. Unless someone self-disclosed, I was also unaware if someone was queer until I was a pro staff. But this impacted me because when I was applying for jobs, I almost only applied to institutions that had representation that I was looking for. So like if there was females in leadership, there was a person of color or someone who's Black in leadership, something of the sort. But especially if they mentioned something specific to justice, diversity, equity, or inclusion, because that was something that I valued and I wanted as a young professional. Now that I am a professional, I try to empower emerging leaders who need to hear that they are qualified and capable and prepared. And oftentimes, like they know that they are, but they are not confident that they are. So I want to like build that confidence with them. And sometimes it's the words of affirmation. I also try to share my experiences when I'm given the chance, hence now, because I know my journey to recreation is not as linear as most. In comparison, I had a late start. Again, I was a second semester junior when I first started recreation. I also seek to unite people who do look like me or share similar experiences as me, and try to involve those who don't necessarily look like me because they're likely like needing that education component. And as long as they're like actively willing and trying to learn more, then they're invited because it only helps perpetuate that education.
Great, thank you so much. And then Adam, would you be able to share a little bit with us?
Yeah, sure. I'm just rereading the question here. So yeah, I think kind of building up what Dominique said is seeking out people who look like you or come from similar backgrounds, I think is critical for both like students and professional staff, is feeling welcomed and like at ease in whatever area you may be in. And when I went to Washington State University, that wasn't so much of an issue because it was a larger school from Washington, so like fairly diverse population. And I moved out here to Wyoming, and had never been to Wyoming before until my on-campus interview. So there was a little bit of a change there, but going from one college town to another, it was all right, and I was still able to like call family and stuff. One thing is I definitely miss access to Asian restaurants and stuff. Just moving from Washington, I'm always so hungry. I'm like, I want some pho right now. But I'm getting off topic. But let's see, experience. I think there are some pros that if there are not as many people who look like you, is when you do find people who do, and if you connect with them, like it's been nice to get to know Dominique more over the past, was it a year and a half, Dominique? Like, yeah, okay. So when you make those connections, you really hold on to them, I think, and I think it allows you to feel more comfortable talking. Like we've had some really good conversations in our caucus meetings and stuff. So, and it's funny because like prior to this, I'd never really expected myself to join a caucus, but I'm very thankful I did. And I would encourage if anyone who's listening or watching this, who's on the fence about maybe joining a similar group or caucus or whatnot, I would give it a shot. Like go to a couple meetings, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what you learn and how you feel after each one. It's like, that was the best part of my workday. Now I'm feeling re-energized to go back.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any mentors that you would like to recognize that have supported you in your professional and personal journey?
Yeah, I have a couple. So all of these people kind of helped me in my journey to recreation. So foremost, Jolene Corsi-Witzel, she's no longer in recreation, but she does, I think, high school programming. But she gave me my start to campus rec. She was the one that was like, you need to work in recreation. There needs to be more people that look like you and that are you. So please consider it. And so she gave me the bug, if you will. Shout out to Sandra Vasquez, who she's not in recreation actually, but she did give me my graduate fellowship position, and then encouraged me to stay relevant in collegiate recreation she let me do whatever I wanted to do in my fellowship so that it could be transferable to recreation. Shout out to Brian Stelzer for believing in me enough to welcome me to Nebraska, and then teaching me to be assertive and confident, because Lord knows I had none of that when I got to Nebraska. Shout out to Joy Pacoma Byers for giving me my first chance as a professional. My application to YSU was 5 days late. So I'm thankful every day that I'm here, because she easily could have been like next. Shout out to Ryan McNicholas for encouraging challenge by choice. And so we only grow when we put ourselves in positions of toughness. And I certainly do not have to put myself on all these positions of challenge, but I know that I am a stronger, more well-rounded professional because of it. And then shout out to my fellow Asian Caucus members, Earl Caballone, Kevin George, Adam, you're in here, and then Maria Lauren Ramos for really like being a solid like go-to group of people. These are also people who in the Asian Caucus that I see pretty regularly. And so like I know that I can count on them for like any discourse or conversations of like the field and like our trajectories in the field as young professionals. So thank you to all of you for helping me get to where I am now.
Okay, I was just making sure I had the right spelling of the names of my mentors, because I had this list before, but one of them changed their last names in the last few years, so I want to make sure. So yeah, I mean, like Dominique, I think you have to have a mentor too along the way to get into this field. It feels like, at least it's nice to have someone who can share their experiences and help you along the way. So with that in mind, going back to Washington State University's recreation department, I'd like to thank Shannon LaRosa. She is the assistant director of aquatics and shared facilities. I'm just reading off her new title here because it changed since I was there. When I started off as a little bit of itty bitty freshman at WSU, she was my direct supervisor and was there for all 4 years. And she really helped guide me and also like push me and help me develop as a head lifeguard, which I learned a lot from her. So Shannon, if you're watching this, thank you. Next up is Jared Lindorfer. He is the current aquatics and safety coordinator, or coordinator of aquatics and safety education. Jared, I'm so sorry. At WSU. So he came in my last year at WSU, and it was nice because it was his first year there and it was my last one. So it was nice to get to know him, learn about his career path, and he definitely helped guide me towards this position as well. And currently, especially through the pandemic, it's nice to have a friend and a aquatics coordinator to call up, be like, I'm thinking about doing this idea for in-service trainings. We're going to use face shields in the water, like all this stuff. So it's nice to have another person to bounce safety ideas off of, as well as just another person to vent to occasionally if we're having difficulties. Next up, moving here to the University of Wyoming, I'd like to thank Pat Moran, the current director here, for choosing to hire me for this position and also providing good, solid professional development opportunities throughout my time here and onward. So Pat, thank you. My supervisor, Sarah Luke, she is the assistant director here of operations. And I talk to Sarah, not daily, but all the time. And it's really nice to have a supervisor who I can come to discuss ideas and also like plan day-to-day stuff. So Sarah, thank you very much. And one more shout out to my friend and coworker, Jay McKindle. He is the assistant director of programs here. And we got hired the exact same time. And it's nice he's always been a great friend, colleague, and also sometimes mentor, because he has more experience than I do in this field. So it's nice to be able to bounce ideas off him and get some insight before I do something. I usually get his opinion before like writing an email or thinking about changing policy, stuff like that. So Jay, thanks, man. And then of course, also shout out to the Nurse Asian Caucus. It's been a great opportunity that I'm happy to enjoy the last year and a half, 2 years, however long it's been. and it's been nice because we've had times to share both joys and hardships for whatever's been happening the last 2 years. I had the opportunity to lead a session once. That was really fun, if not very nerve-wracking. But yeah, no, it's been a great opportunity. So yes, that was all I had to say.
Can I add real quick too that something that a keynote speaker in one of my our training sessions once, his name is Dan Fail. He once said, "It doesn't matter what you know, it doesn't matter who you know, but it matters who knows you." And so I say that because all of these people that Adam and I named, they know us. They're able to vouch for us behind closed doors, with open doors, are able to be like, yes, like Dom would be the one that you talk about with, X, Y, and Z in a conference setting. So like these people help you grow and develop, and do not necessarily have to be in front of them. So as you grow and develop as young professionals or established professionals, what have you, try to figure out who knows you. And if you feel like not enough people know you, then it's make a name for yourself or something like that.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, y'all. And I think a lot of us have the similar experience where somebody at some point recognized potential in us, and then they went out of their way to be like, you should do campus recreation. You should look at this. You need to go. Like my 3 bosses at Portland State sat me down and had that conversation with me. They're like, you realize the only place you don't work is intramurals, right? You probably should do this. And I pivoted from a history degree 3 months before I graduated from undergrad. So it's literally never too late to get into campus recreation.
Well, welcome here, Rochelle. We're glad to have you.
Well, I mean, I've been here for 10 years, but yeah, but it's important that if you are watching this, that either you can be that person for somebody else, and if you see the potential in somebody else, it's good to make those connections. Because yeah, wouldn't be here without our mentors. So could you please share with us any of your lived experiences regarding Asian stereotypes or biases that have affected you personally or professionally? And either Dom or Adam could start with this.
Oh, Adam, we unmuted at the same time. You go.
Okay, I'll go. Mine's a fairly shorter answer than last time, so I'll go real quick, Dom. So okay, what experiences? So being biracial, like it's a lot of times harder for people to pick up on my Filipino side of my heritage at times, unless I have a tan, which has not been for a while. I remember one time in my freshman year of college, it was like I don't think I'd even been there like 6 weeks. It was like my first month there, and I was at the bus stop waiting to, I think, go to Walmart or something. Yeah, and there's this girl like staring at me at the bus stop, and then just out of nowhere, it's like, "What are you?" like that, and I just like, no, like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was like, I think she was Korean though. Like at the time, I was like, "Hello," and I was like, explain like I'm biracial. Like, "Oh, okay." Like I thought you were. I usually get mistaken for usually Hispanic a lot of times, which Philippines, I think in general, that just happens a lot. So yeah, I've had a couple of those experiences like here and there, or just like if you're like just out here, sometimes like if you're at the bar, like chatting with people, and then like people asking questions that aren't necessarily like meaning to be it, ignorant or rude, but they're just not aware. And so I think like taking those like patiently and explaining things can be beneficial for both yourself and educating others on like, yeah, probably shouldn't use that term, but I can see why you think that, that sort of thing. I'm happy to say I haven't really had any issues in my professional career. Just another reason it's nice to have the NERSA Asian Caucus. And also another thing cool is here at UW, we have a AAPI group as well. So I got like 2 groups to help out with, which is really nice. But that's all I had. So pass it back to you, Dom.
Yeah. So I guess like this is like my whole life experiences, and I'll note that I don't really deal with this professionally, but people ask me all the time if I speak English, and like I have an auditory disorder, so like sometimes if I can't see you talking to me, I don't answer, which doesn't really help that. But like I ask pretty frequently if I speak English, and I say yes, like fluently. Um, People joke about my math skills and driving abilities. I mean, I also joke about my own math skills. But in terms of my driving abilities, I just have a lead foot. Okay, I like to go fast. There's nothing wrong with that, right? um, People assume that I'm not as athletic as I am. But you know, whatever, it is what it is. During like peak Asian hate crimes, I had honestly a bit of a two. So that I think this might be like only professional experience. But yeah, but I had a bit of an attitude, and I was like, well, like I'm worried about my parents at home. I live in Ohio, but my parents are in New York. I'm worried about my own kind of well being, and like living in Midwest Ohio, Northeast Ohio. At that, I don't really see people who look at like me. So like it was kind of like, am I safe? You know what I mean? Like I'm constantly on high alert. And so like I guess until I told people that this was upsetting me, they were just like, why do you have an attitude of some sort? And I was like, well, am I supposed to be happy when I'm concerned? And so they had also asked like why I didn't say anything, and I was like, well, like it's hard for me to share that when I don't think that it necessarily matters to you, or that you were even interested in asking me how I felt about that. So um I don't blame anybody for that, because it is like difficult to have those kind of tough conversations, and you don't want to be too intrusive if someone is going through a hard time. But like, yeah, it wasn't until I shared how I actually felt that like people understood why I was so upset. But as a whole, like, so I'm three-quarters Cambodian and a quarter Chinese, and a lot of time people ask me what ethnicity I am. And so whenever I specifically say what I am, their response is usually, "Oh, I thought you were Asian." And I'm like, it's the same thing. I just specified how Asian I am, though. And so at this point of my life as a professional now, I guess I answer based on how it is asked. So, like, if someone's like, "Hey, are you Hawaiian?" I just lie and say yes, because I don't want to go into the no, actually, I'm this. Same thing I usually get if I am black or white, or Filipino, Hawaiian, Native American, everything in between, except for what I'm actually, until someone who is also of Southeast Asian descent asks me if I'm Cambodian, and I say yes. And so, um, I guess like part of that is that like a lot of people only see like Northern Asian, so like Korean, people who are Chinese, Japanese, etc. So they don't know what other Asian people look like. And we look very colorful. So I guess it just depends on how close to the equator we are, or if we are like solely one heritage. But yeah, it's a little bit of everything. And like when you're younger, it's like, oh, people just don't know. But when you're older, you kind of assume people to ask in a more like respectful manner. And 9 times out of 10, sometimes people don't understand what they're saying is not polite either. So you just kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And this goes off is a little bit more goes off of that last question. Have you personally had to experience microaggressions, which I'm assuming based off of what both of you have just said, you have? And I think the purpose of this question, and also the purpose of hearing from you all, is it is white people's responsibility to educate themselves and to understand that a lot of the stuff that we are saying is not acceptable.
Yeah, I'd say it's anybody who's not Asian specifically, because I get the same thing from Black people or Indigenous people or Latinx. Actually, the Indigenous people think I'm Native American, so it's like, haha, I'm an honorary Native American. But yeah, it's up to everybody's like I guess pace of understanding to like learn about other cultures, and that there are plenty more than what they have seen in their immediate bubble.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Dom said. Like, it's not one group or anything. It's just like everyone, and it's difficult because it constantly changes, or maybe not constantly, but I think everyone just being patient with one another and like taking the time to learn what others are comfortable and are not comfortable with it helps out a lot.
Yeah. So sorry, that was question 5. How do we deal with how do we navigate microaggressions? So basically, it just depends on who I'm around, honestly. But I usually like roll my eyes, and take a deep breath. Like I'm like, where are they coming from? Do they actually not know, or are they just being rude? And so 9 times out of 10, they just actually do not know, like ignorant by definition. If it bothers me enough, I will tell that person who offended me that they offended me. And I'm the type of person in general that like I'm gonna let you say something once. I feel like I need to know your true self, and part of that is like knowing how you are, even if I disagree. So I'll let you say something once, but I won't let you say it again, and certainly not in front of me if you do decide to say it again. Boundaries and keeping them clear. And then if it does bother me, but I don't want to say anything, I just kind of like tell a friend. And so there is kind of this mindset that I have that I keep the peace around me and also within me. And I certainly don't want to make mountains out of molehills kind of thing. So it just kind of depends on the situation and to the extent of which I was disrespected. That I either do something or do nothing.
Yeah, no, it's difficult for me because I'm not a very confrontational person if I can avoid it. However, we call this in my family the cat leaf face, which is from the Filipino side of my family, where I have a very hard time concealing my facial expressions or emotions and stuff, which yeah. So that people are like, oh hey, you look like upset. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's probably because this, and I'll like try and explain like politely and stuff, but yeah, I'm not always super confrontational, but I find it definitely helps to talk about it with like friends or something, and then they might encourage me to do like follow up later. So yeah, I think it's just having good friends, good support group is nice.
Yeah, and that's definitely how like the Asian Caucus has helped us. Like they gave us a safe space to discuss these microaggressions and ask if everyone else has had similar experiences, which made us feel like we weren't alone. Like, when you have such a small representation of people who look like you in the field, you're kind of like, who do I talk to? Like, who might be able to relate? And like, I think everyone has similar experiences of like, who do I go to? And so in specific with microaggressions, like unless you are a fellow Asian, it's kind of hard to share those microaggressions. And so yeah, the Asian Caucus, which Adam, now that I think about it, I think it's only been like less than a year. Like I think January 2021 is when nurses started this. I don't know if it happened over summer of 2020, but
I thought it was like fall/winter of 2020. Like
you could be right,
I could
honestly,
be
which
right.
it's been
Trust.
it's been less than a year or so that I've known Adam and the people in the Asian Caucus that I named, but like in less than a year, and we haven't even met in person yet. In less than a year, like I have a group of people that I know I can talk to from whatever region, and I hope get to see them sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And then to wrap up the questions, would y'all mind talking about what actions have you incorporated, or I'm sorry, by what actions or with, I'm great, this is where I'm starting to lose my ability to read, so we're doing good today. How have you been able to incorporate DEI actionable items to dismantle systems of inequities kind of within either your community or your sphere at your university? And I know this is like a big level question, and it's also very difficult to do this. So it would be great if you have, if you have resources, or if you have been able to identify certain inequities or systems that you are working towards, putting a name on and then trying to dismantle.
So foremost, I would say that my institution as a whole is not necessarily ready for more implementation of DI and justice related policies or programming. I know that they are certainly trying, but you can only do so much within a cooperative group. I'll leave it at that. But we start within our division of student affairs. And I feel like as a division, we can start making tidal waves to eventually make like actual whirlpools of change. As student affairs professionals, we kind of have a bigger pulse on students beyond them in school, like how they are mentally, and how they are mentally helps them perform academically and their involvement, so on and so forth. But we kind of have a pulse of what students want, what students needs, and what students like don't want at all. Within our division, we have tried to do our own things respectively. I know that as a department, campus recreation, last spring we had a conversation about implicit bias and microaggressions, and we labeled the presentation "What do you mean?" And basically, we use that format of memes to have this conversation that is sensitive and especially to students within our population. It's a tough conversation to have. So we did that to help them understand where implicit biases can be found. We encourage them to, be a little introspective and think about their current opinions on things and how welcome and inviting they are or are not. And then we basically encouraged everyone, like we acknowledge that everyone has their own pace of understanding and encouraged everybody to challenge by choice. We challenged everybody to try to make little strides to change that perspective. You can only do so much, but I think it's a more impactful change, like transformation, even if the person takes it upon themselves to change intrinsically than extrinsically being convinced or like another reason besides them actually wanting to change and understand.
So I'm just rereading the question here. So Wyoming has a very small Asian population. It's pretty safe to say that. So when UW in the last couple months started the UW AAPI group, it is a smaller group than the NERSA Asian Caucus, but that's to be expected considering it's housed only at the University of Wyoming. So that it's been nice to get to know members of that group more, to learn about their shared experiences, and a lot of it specific to the University of Wyoming. So that's been good. But other than that, I gotta say I haven't had any a much other involvement in incorporation of DEI stuff here at the University of Wyoming.
Well, and Adam, I know you've been really involved in all the aquatics roundtables where we've certainly had quite a few of those broader conversations. And I also really appreciate you because as we've been talking, I'm like, you actually actively participate in all the aquatics roundtables that you attend. And I really appreciate that because usually when I'm there, I'm like going to cry. So I appreciate that you actively participate and have a lot of really great ideas and like really understand the inequities within aquatics because I think inherently it's tough. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Well, and I appreciate both of you because I really appreciate the opportunity to learn more about you and get to know you a little bit better and share your stories and a little bit of your journey within campus recreation. So do y'all have any pluggables or anything that you would like to add before we sign off for the day? Sorry, I listen to way too many podcasts and I watch way too much YouTube.
If any of you are looking to like chat or connect, You can email me at DSAK, that's Dog Sam Apple King, DSAK at ysu.edu.
I think a little bit sharing advice if there's students interested in campus rec who are watching this is if you already work for the campus rec department, talk to your supervisor or the pro staff members because you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think, for how many would be willing to talk to you or like to share their experience and provide advice. It may not seem like it from an outside perspective, but like if you take the time to initiate that conversation, it may have huge payoff and you may learn a ton. And Raquel, so can they see the chat if I put my email into the chat or?
No, they won't be able to see the chat, but I'll
Got it.
make sure that y'all's contact information is in the description of this video on YouTube
Perfect.
and when it's posted on IGTV.
Okay, yeah, because my email is acomeau@uwyo.edu. I'm just putting it in there as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, thanks so much, y'all. And we appreciate to everybody tuning in. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Yeah, thanks so much. And make sure you tune in next week for the next episode. So thanks so much and have a great day, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.